Hello guys. What gets me really going are throwers. Every time I see a new light on the market, the first thing I always ask myself is, can I make it throw more? Yeah, lumen is one thing. Floodlights are, generally more practical because, what's in front of you is a little bit more important than what's farther away. But for some reason, that doesn't pique our interest, or at least my interest. I guess it's kind of like the same concept that the grass is greener on the other side, and you can only see the other side with a thrower, right? So, here are two of the most popular throwers on my store. The through-night TN42vn and the U22vn. Currently the hottest selling throwers. Both are exceedingly impressive with CFT90, a relatively new high-powered domeless LED. Very expensive LED. It's like 125 per LED. And if I had to get just one, it's like $130 shipped. So this is a very expensive LED. It's worth, well, actually it's not really worth the money, but there's no substitute. So when there's no substitute, they get to charge whatever they want. So, throwers are nice. A lot of us are into throwers. Only issue is they're large. They're large because usually they require a large reflector to focus down the beam. You can get more throw with an aspheric light, but with a lens, you kind of get just the projections of a dye, and it's kind of extremely tunnel vision. You don't get any spill. You don't get a conventional beam. So it's somewhat less practical. You can't really use it to walk your dog or anything. So reflector lights pique my interest much greater than aspheric lights, okay? However, because of the fact that you need a lot of reflector surface area to focus down the beam, it makes the light a little too large, and performance usually aren't all that great because you have one LED, and you can only have one LED. That sits right in the center of a really large reflector. So, oh yeah, just in case you guys are wondering why this light is not black, it's been Cerakote with titanium blue and I think a satin aluminum, okay? It's a bare hose. It's gonna be a TN42vn90 build for a customer. So, just to show you guys the size difference here. To me, the TN42vn is likely the largest size that most people will carry. Anything larger than this is going to be very hard to carry. And look, how it's quite substantial. I have small hands, so it even looks more substantial in my hands. I guess if you put on a holster and on your hip, it's alright. It's not so bad. But it's the biggest I will comfortably take out of the house, okay? BLF GT though is obviously too big. Yeah, I've gotten a little bit more used to it now. When I first got the light, I was like, I'm not taking this anywhere. It's just too huge, and I've gotten used to it, and I'm okay with handling it now. But there's no denying that it is a huge light. It weighs 5 pounds, fully loaded, and just look at that huge reflector. So you know this throw well, but is it really that practical? Yeah, it's practical to a specific use, but for daily use, when you really need just a decently good thrower, scan your backyard, it's a little overkill, right? So here is what I found to be the Goldilocks size for throwers. And yes, I don't feel like the TN42 is Goldilocks size either, because that's still a relatively large light. Okay, so actually, let me bring in these two lights and then show you guys what size I consider in comparisons to be Goldilocks size. Manker U21vn, okay? Let me just pull it out of the box, show you guys the size of the light, and then we'll talk more about the true review of the light. of this review, the Manker U22. There you go. So, the U22, to me, was a size light that I felt I can comfortably carry in a jacket pocket, on a holster, even in my jeans, back jeans pocket. And I thought it was a really nice size light. Performance is really nice. We'll talk about performance in a bit, but let's just talk about size now. I thought it was like the go-to-lock size, and I carry it a lot. I saw a lot of them too, because people find it a little bit more practical than, you know, the other larger size. It's just decently large reflector, but it's just not overkill. Okay, so when I first saw the U22 on the market, I was like, wow, that is my favorite light shrunken down, and what's not to love, right? You get really nice large reflector, and of course not as large as the U21, but you know, it's not that much less, but however, it's considerably smaller and more comfortable to carry. So that, I was like, wow, I gotta get this light. I actually ordered in bulk before I even tested the light, because I know that it's going to be similarly built to the U22vn, but just scaled down. So I know I was going to love it. So yeah, now that I've been carrying the U22, I feel like the U21 is a little large now, and I know it's like you get to these size and the U21 is tiny. But now if you handle a U21, you're like, wow, this thing just perfect in size. It's just so small. Just look at it, how nice it is, how much smaller it is. And in terms of throw performance, yes, you're sacrificing some, but it's not as bad as you would think, okay? So now let's get into the review of the U22 versus the U21vn. Take these out of the way. Okay, so let's get all the numbers out of the way so that we can talk about what I really feel about this light, okay? You guys know my reviews, mostly subjective, but that's how it is. That's the best, this is all I can give you guys. This is how I feel about it, you know? Because otherwise you guys would refer to the specs and numbers and make up your own mind for how you feel about a light. But you know, sometimes me being able to see a lot of lights, my impressions might mean a little bit to you too. So I built both of these lights in Oslan flat black 6500 Kelvin for max throw, and SST40 HD and SD. Okay, but particularly the Oslan throws very well in both lights, but produces a very similar hotspot size. And I was a little bit disappointed that the smaller light didn't make a larger hotspot. I was expecting the hotspot to be, you know, if it's a smaller light, a little bit wider, but it didn't, because the reflector width didn't really shrunk down accordingly. So basically they have similar dimension, just shrunk down. So the hotspot size didn't really change. It wasn't a shallow or more shallow reflector, so the hotspot size didn't get any larger on the smaller light. So that brings up a big dilemma for me. These two lights, which I thought would be amazing in Oslan, because the U21 is absolutely amazing with the Oslan flat black. The U22vn is not really, okay? It's excellent, but it's not as amazing as the U21. So the specs difference is they're both right about 800 lumen, 780 for the smaller light, 800 for the larger light, but that's, you know, variance. And I'm sure if I measure a different U22, I might get 800. So that the 20 lumen is nothing. So they're about 800 lumen. The intensity difference is great. 465 kcd, 320 kcd. I didn't expect it to be that large of a difference. I was hoping to get like maybe 350 kcd here, 465 here, but it's quite substantial. 320, 465. Oh, in person, the 465 that seems like a noticeably edge, okay? Especially when You get a similar hotspot size, almost similar Corona, the light around the hotspot, and you're getting a lot more intensity in the larger size light. So, darn, that performance really made me held back on my recommendations of this light, right? So I actually put this light on my store, recommended with the Oscillon, with the letter R on it, how I felt it was nice. But when I did the side-by-side comparison and the lack of throw in the smaller hotspot of the Oscillon U22, and then on top of that, they're both $200, so that's expensive. I had to withdraw my R recommendation. I was like, you know, the U22vn is the one to get if you're gonna pay that much money. It's the one to get. You know, go for the bigger size for the more throw. And then I played with it some more. I put in SST40 and SST shave dome and dome on, and that's where the U22 absolutely shines. Let's see what I got with it. SST40 HD 2000 lumen, right? So now we're really stepping up. We're stepping up from 800 lumen to 2000 lumen. That's substantial. And intensity dropped by about half. It went from 320 to 120 kcd. So you are getting about twice the output and about half the throw, half the intensity, not throw. So yeah, it sounds like half the intensity sounds like a lot, but you know how mathematically half the intensity doesn't translate to half the throw. Is like a quarter of the throw less. So now it really makes sense because the hotspot size is larger. You get a lot more output, and it's just a lot of performance for the size now, and that's what I would recommend. So I put the R back on, the recommended R right back on the title, because I feel like now the U22 really has a place of its own. Nothing really in this size throw 120 kcd and put out 2000 lumen. And it's just a really nice, well-built design, excellent heat sinking with this good substantial mass, even though it's more compact. And then on top of that, I have to give it to this light for being the first light that has that utilizes the new 21700 cells. Let me show you guys right now. That is what really elevates this light. As we know, most lights are built in 18650, right? No sound on this light. Okay. Oh, before I forget, U22 comes with a battery. Okay. U22vn does not come with a battery. However, both are very similar in price. $150 for the SST and $200 for the Oscillon. So, you know, take it for what it's worth. Here is a few 26650 cells. They're fat, they're kind of big and heavy, and there hasn't been a lot of advancement in 26650 technology for what I know. Okay, typically here's a through night protected cell. Here's an ace beam. They're both right about 5,000 milliamp hours, and they're not really high drain. If you want to step up to a bit more higher drain cell, you have to get IMR 26650 from EFAS. This one is 4,200 milliamp, and I think I have another one that's coming in the mail, the purple one, and I think it's like 4,000 milliamp only. So it's only a tiny bit more than an 18650. But of course, higher drain, and it maintains the voltage. Less voltage drops due to the bigger cell. But it's not really impressive in terms of runtime. This is a brand new cell, and the first light that I build with this battery. It's the Manker 21700, and this thing is a 4,800 milliamp hour cell. So here you have 4,800 milliamp hour. Here you have 42, because you have to compare apples to apples. This is a relatively high drain cell, and it yield max output with almost all of the LEDs I've tested. So it's a good high drain cell. 4,800 milliamp hours. 4,200 milliamp hours. That's not fair. You have a much smaller diameter cell. Yeah, it's a tad longer, but look, it's just really 48. I was shocked to see that it's 4,800 milliamp hours, really, and you get a substantially smaller body. You get more runtime, and even if you compare it with the bigger cell, it's still not that far. With the higher capacity 2650, it's not that big. That's not that far off. 4,800 milliamp hour, 5,000, and it's still substantially smaller. So I feel like this battery is very impressive. More manufacturers should be using this light, this cell, and more in their lights. One other additional features that I've just recently added to both these lights are the built-in micro USB charging. All of the U22vn before this model did not have micro USB charging. However, I felt like that was a very important feature in these particular lights, so I made some effort, and now both of them retains this micro USB charging. And I feel like this is very important, especially for the U22vn, because I have not found a charger that is big enough, that is long enough to charge the 21700 amp battery. So for now, when I use this light, I use the micro USB. I'm sorry, it's not micro USB. It's actually USB-C port. Okay, a much improved port in terms of holding retention over the older micro USB. But that's a whole different subject. So I have to use the USB port here to charge the cell. So I don't have a choice. So it was nice that I was able to retain the the USB charging feature for this light. So it's hard to recommend these two lights at $200. That's just really expensive. However, I feel the U22vn, even at $200, is worth it. And now that I can comfortably recommend since the U22 really shines with the SST40, I really feel that $150 worth it. You're knocking off $50 and you have a really nice, well-rounded package. It comes with a battery, built-in charging, so you don't really have to get a charger. My only complaint is it has a cheap box, but you know, compared to the U21, really nice foam padded box. This box is just really cheap. For me, it doesn't really matter. I toss the box anyway, but for some people it does matter. When you get this light from me, it'll only come with a USB-C cable, and that's about it. Since all of it will have my driver VNX2 UI, so I'll provide different paperwork to show how to use that circuitry. So, you know, my own circuitry with built-in charging in this size for $150. The beam is absolutely amazing with SST40. I feel like I cannot recommend this light enough. All right. If I sit here any longer, I'm just gonna end up bragging about it more because I'm absolutely in love with this light. I love it so much that I haven't really been using my L16vn, which is a light that I highly recommend for tactical use. Okay, and I haven't really used my U22vn anymore since I've gotten this light, and I really don't feel like I've missed the throw that much just because it's more practical in the beam and the beam quality, and you just kind of have to see the beam in person. The hot spot is really nice, well defined, and it's completely filled, and it's a really nice white tint, cool white tint. One thing I forgot to add, because I'm using SST40 HD, I'm getting them in the 7500 Kelvin, and this is probably the only time that I've used Kelvin this high, and it's really, really nice. I know it sounds really bad. There should be a lot of blue and purple in 7500 Kelvin, but there's none. So, dream light for me, dream perfect Goldilocks thrower size for me at the moment, especially with this battery. Other manufacturer, please make more lights with this battery. It's amazing. All right, thank you guys.